I'm going to start off today by asking you a strange question, and that is, are you a Christian? Is there a way to tell that you're a Christian? Now, of course, I'm not going to be able to answer this deep-seated question in about the 10 or 15 minutes that I have today. But let me start this way. I believe we can all agree that by identifying ourselves as a Christian in today's society seems to bring about what? Some of the most strangest looks, doesn't it? I have a friend who was raised Catholic, but he was uncomfortable saying he was a Christian. He really didn't know, or at least he didn't want to identify himself as a Christian. So is there an alternative? Well, many will say, I'm nothing, or I have no belief one way or the other. Now, to me, that seems really odd. To me, someone past the age of puberty that can say, I have no belief, I'm nothing, is like saying, I have no convictions or thoughts or morals or values. Not in my mind, that's extremely sad. But let's face it, the Christian church is under attack on the world scene, and yes, right here in America. Here in America, we do face a different sort of attack. To claim you're a Christian, you're viewed today as some kind of a right-wing religious zealot nut. You're filled with bigotry or prejudice. And of course, it's not PC correct to be one or to even associate with another Christian. Now, there are many issues we Christians need to address, but the area that I'm concentrating on today, or that I would like to touch on today, is practice what you preach. Practice what you preach, or setting the right example. In a recent survey taken at a college campus, the interviewer asked the question, what comes to your mind when I say the word Christian? Of the multiple choice answers, the most frequent response was they don't practice what they preach. Now, what a very sad commentary that is, brethren, especially for these young people at a most critical time in their lives, when their minds are at the most receptive and absorbent to God's knowledge and wisdom. So why don't we practice what we preach? Let's turn to Matthew 23, brethren, for our first scripture. Matthew 23. Now let me add this. Have you ever heard someone say, if you're the example of a Christian's life, I can do without? So let's see what Jesus tells us and warns us about here in Matthew 23, verses 1 through 4. It says, then Jesus spoke to the multitudes of his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to absorb, that absorb and do. But do not do according to their works. For they say, and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their own fingers. Here you see, Jesus warns us not to listen to or be a hypocrite. And as we even read these scriptures, many of us come to mind right now that we know people who pretend to be something that they're not. They say one thing and do completely opposite. They act one way in a certain setting and completely different in another setting. Now, it's very important, brethren, as Christians, that we follow the example of Jesus Christ. Now, it doesn't matter who you're with or where you are. The words that we speak and the things that we do will always reflect our faith. In these times, we see many who are telling others what they should do, how they should live their lives, but they fail to follow their own instructions, don't they? In the church, we call that a beam in their eye. And as the saying goes, we need to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So as we have seen here in Matthew 23, beware of those who have a golden tongue that talk the talk, but cannot lead by example and walk the walk. So why is it so important that we practice what we preach? Let's go back to Matthew again. We're going to go to Matthew 5, brethren, Matthew 5. For me, one of the important reasons is the integrity of our faith. The integrity of our faith. That's what's important, brethren. But in Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16, brethren, God tells us why it's important. Here he says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown down and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." So here we see, brethren, that believers are the salt and the light of the earth. What better way can we as Christians attract others than by the light or example that we set in the way we live and the words we speak? You know, whether we like it or not, people are watching us and seeing how we respond on a day-to-day basis in our everyday life. Now, I don't believe that there's a parent or a grandparent out there right now that can say their children don't watch them and other adults, and then they imitate what they see and repeat what they hear. And can I say this? I guarantee you it will be at the most inopportune time that they will reveal what they have seen and what they have heard, to your most embarrassing moment. Are our words and actions something we want repeated in front of our friends, our coworkers, our family members, and especially our children? They are watching. So what evidence do we offer for our faith? Are our actions any different from those who don't even profess to know Christ? Remember, not only are non-believers watching us, but so are other Christians. What about those who are new in the faith? They often look to more mature Christians like us. So do our words and our actions encourage and build up each other? Unfortunately, it doesn't take much in our society to see the wrong examples. Let's take today's sporting events. It used to be said, it's not if you win or lose, but how do you play the game that counts. It has also been said that sports help build one's character. But today, sports is revealing one's character. And in too many instances, we know it's not a character that we can admire or even respect. I took just a moment, brethren, just to list a few songs that we sing together right here in God's church, based on how we should be living our lives. Starting with Ambassadors for Christ. We are God's people. United we stand. A chosen generation. One faith, one life, and exactly this one. By this shall all men know. So how can we practice what we preach? Let's turn to James 3, brethren. James 3, many of you already know what that's going to say, but James 3. One way is to be careful of the words we speak. You can tell a lot about a person by the words they use, especially when they're distressed, angry, or even threatened. Now, James 3, 1 through 12 is a good example of what we should probably all be looking at every so often in our lives. However, for our purposes, I'm just going to read verses 2 through 6. James 3, 2 through 6. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able to bridle his whole body. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships. Although they're so large and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder, whatever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. So how great a forest a little fire kindles. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire by hell. Brethren, people are listening to the words we speak. Are they words that build up, or do they cut down? Do our words bring peace and calm to a situation, or do they add fuel to the fire? Also, do our words, the ones that we speak, match the person that we claim to be? If we profess that we are followers of Christ, then our words, brethren, should be a reflection of that relationship. If we are practicing what we preach, then the way we act here, right here at church, is the same we should be acting at work, on the road, that's a tough one, and especially in front of our spouse, our children, and other family members. Here's where that old adage comes into play. What you see is what you get. A statement truer than that, you may not ever think of. We need to be constantly be practicing and striving to be that reflection of Christ wherever we are. When people see us in our daily lives, they need to see us in that Christ-like reflection. Now, we all know that preaching part is the easy part, but it's that practicing that leaves a lot to be desired. Let's turn to James 1 again, brethren, James 1. Now, here's where the old saying, now the rubber meets the road. This comes into play here. So we're going to go to James 1, verse 23 and 24, brethren. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. So, brethren, if we are hearers but not doers, when we preach but don't practice, when we use our lips but not our lives, we become as one who looks into that mirror and quickly forgets, and at that point loses touch with the core of who we are actually a reflection of. So in conclusion, for the integrity of our faith, this is why I keep practicing. I keep trying, keep refining, and keep maximizing. Keep carving out that image that I want to reflect. So I will continue to seek God's wisdom, not only for myself, but for all of us, so that we will keep doing the things that we need to be doing, working at it. Failing, oh yes, you bet we will. But getting ourselves up again with God's help, working at it again, and being better at it the next time. So as we strive to practice what we preach, and only with the help of God, can we continue to make progress. So practice to become that reflective image, brethren, of the one that we say we follow, that of Jesus Christ. Brethren, continue to practice what you preach, and have a blessed Sabbath day.